strike stack, 394 Dragon Smoke, Kill, Turbo, Sucker Right. Y2, green right off nasty, Hell to Y2, the X base
Hey, welcome back in the huddle, everyone. I thought call me off guard. The last second.
That's a restarted, man. It was a fly. It flew in my face. My bad. I didn't know what to do. It's landed like right here in my lip. Like,
Man, all right. Welcome back, y'all. We got a good episode for y'all today. We want to go over some analytics in NFL and fantasy. But before we get to all that, we want to just do a quick recap on the shitty ass week we had last week. At least for me, it was. I mean, I don't know how. I think y'all got wins, but I didn't get the wins.
I'm cool.
Y'all feeling good about last week?
Oh, absolutely.
No, man, fuck y'all.
Absolutely.
My team was in shambles. Team was in absolute shambles.
So, are you underachieving, or is the season just extra hard?
No, it wasn't extra hard. Just injuries, man. I lost a lot of players.
But you said you were gonna. You said you were a top 3 team.
If my players weren't injured, I'll be up there.
You think so?
I was making a run to come back. I was making a
okay.
run. I was like a 3-game winning streak, and then now I'm gonna be a 3-game losing streak. If not more. if not more, I mean, I lost everybody.
So let's get into this trade.
Yeah, so we got your boy Eamon on here. Start off and jump into the bullshit immediately. I mean, this trade wasn't that bad.
No.
Zach Charbonnet
not like my other ones, huh?
Yeah. I think you both were just trying to get the handcuffs to your players. Seemed like it made sense. Was there any kind of like haggling to get to this point, or just it was a simple trade? Like you just put it out there.
I mean, nothing's ever simple. I think he asked for Chase Brown back, and I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was. Amari Cooper, I think, was mentioned. We talked about it for a little bit. I was like, he's just a handcuff. I'm not going to pay that much for him. I can give you one of a few players. Gave him a list, and he picked Singletary because I think he saw the value in it.
Okay.
I like it.
Well,
it's a good trade.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good trade for playoffs. Yeah. It's nothing to really to bring home about. So yeah,
Tracy had a possible concussion going into that week too, so it made sense for him to have that just in case. And then I got Walker, and Walker's notorious for having little injuries here and there and missing a game or two, but he always comes back. Yeah, so it made sense for me to have his handcuff.
Yeah, if he goes down, Zach Charbonnet could be a little league winner.
He could be. It's possible. He's averaging more yards than Walker.
Not Singletary. Singletary won't be.
Singletary had a couple good games to start the year before Tracy started popping off.
He just fumbles too much though, so they're not going to give him the carries.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Tracy's playing great too out there.
On top of that.
Why would you give him the carries when you got a guy that's averaging 6 yards a carry over, the past 4 weeks or something like that?
Yeah. So do you think that's the running back of the future?
I mean, we're going to talk analytics. One of the things that I'll talk about later is, and I can use Tyrone Tracy as an example if you want. He has some elite numbers in 2 categories I really like. So when we get there, I'll bring it back and we'll talk about those 2 categories, and I'll say, but he's over 2 yards in one and over 2 yards in the other. To me, the 2 most important categories for running back.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into that. So let's get into the analytics. So I know that with this league, there's some guys who prepare in advance for the draft, like weeks in advance. There's some guys who prepare the day before the draft. There's some guys who don't prepare at all and kind of just wing it the day of the draft.
I just want to say I want everybody to look at EJ's team. Don't think I've ever seen a team that sad looking. So if you want to drop a player just to help him out, a guy you don't need.
Damn. Going for this man's neck already with me.
Yeah.
I think I traded him a little bit. He's got Bijan, so I mean, it's not
he's set for next year. He's not even.
I don't even think he can start any players this week. Enough players, like he doesn't have enough players to start.
Oh.
Damn.
But
That's
it's all
that's
love, but goddamn. But back to the original question. Yeah,
yeah,
like
yeah. So when you're preparing, 'cause I know you're like me, you prepare
I
in
do
advance for
a
the draft.
lot.
So
I got Excel spreadsheets.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
I
Oh
know what I
yeah.
do. I know you probably doing this at least 3 times more what I'm doing. So how do you, when you evaluate your players using analytics, how much of it do you trust analytics versus like watching the preseason games and college tape versus just having like a gut check and say I feel like it's
mhm.
gonna go this way.
So it's probably 50-50. I mean, and that's I do spend a lot of time. I pull, Excel sheets. I look at, really I try to look at like previous 3 years if I have a 3-year history, especially on certain positions, quarterback being one. I try
Mhm.
to average out those positions.
Hmm.
So I'll look and I'll say, hey, this guy's done well. This guy's trending upward. So I see, this step up. Um, so I use that, but bottom line, you kind of have to predict: is this guy, hey, look, he's got a new coordinator, he's got
Hmm.
a new quarterback. This running back went from this team to that team. How's he going to do there? Like if I looked at preseason, for example, I thought Derrick Henry was going to be good. I didn't think he was going to be this good. I thought
Right.
Saquon Barkley was going to be good. I didn't think he was going to be this good because notoriously older running backs who switch teams aren't that successful. So you got to kind of go with your gut a little bit. You got to look at the history of the game and kind of predict who's going to have an up and down year, and do your research.
Mhm.
Obviously, I mean, like I said, I got spreadsheets. So I'm looking through a lot of stuff, and I'm reading articles just to see. I probably read 4 or 5 sleeper articles a week for 2 months, 3 months before the draft. I'm reading them, and
Mhm.
after they do the NFL draft, I'm reading on stuff. I'm watching film tape on college guys coming in, and especially quarterbacks on what they're going to do in the offense with the concepts or schemes they're running. So
Mhm.
See,
um,
but with the college guys though, I feel like it's harder to do what you were saying because you don't really have 3 years of tape to look back and average out, especially with college
Mhm.
guys who like don't do nothing like their freshman, sophomore, junior years and just soar their senior year. It's kind of like, okay, well, is that fluke or is this guy really that been that gonna be that good
Yeah,
going into the
especially
league?
at like blue chip schools where you're not coming in and playing as a freshman. Like
Right.
yeah,
gonna have to wait. But I know the tide on that is changing, especially with NIL.
yeah.
Um, but I also heard something you say that I wanted to touch on in terms of like analytics versus like context for a situation a player is going into. Um, talk a little bit more about that versus like the analytics and you're playing into a scheme.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I watch a lot of film breakdowns, specifically on quarterbacks, especially when they're changing teams, and then I also look at like, so for an example, Alvin Kamara. This year, I was looking to get Kamara. I was looking to get him, somewhere in the 6th or 7th round was my hope. Um, and the reason is because he's going into a Kubiak offense, which is a West Coast offense similar to the Shanahan offense. They're going to be running some outside zone. Kamara's got elite traits when it comes to getting quick and decisive cuts.
Hmm.
So I really thought it was a good fit. And then on top of that, that he's a target monster. So I look at, again, this is a new scheme for them, but you have a guy that was already a pretty good running back and a great pass catcher who's going into a running scheme that I think fit him better than anything he'd ran before.
Yeah.
So, just for example, you got to take a lot of things into account.
Yeah,
You can't just
that's
look
a
at
great example.
yeah,
That's a
Right.
great
Right.
example how
you
like
know,
analytics pairs with like concept knowledge of actual football and like how
yep,
that's helpful in fantasy instead of just like looking at the roster percentage of what people are there or the trending topics. Like, I think that's a good way to perceive it.
yeah,
But
you got to look at all
let's
sides.
not look over that. This man just gave us a wealth of knowledge in like a 30-second span. I want you to tell me out of this league, how many of the guys in this league do you think are doing that much research prior to the draft.
That's probably not as many as me. But hey, look, I mean, I have some good years, I have some bad years. Like I said, it's 50-50. So sometimes I maybe think somebody's going to do a lot better than they actually do, you know?
All the time.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get bitten sometimes too because I see this new scheme. And I go, this guy's a perfect fit. And then you see him in there, you're like, no, he's not.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
not perfect, but, you know, I think more hits than misses.
So in that same process, when things don't work out for you, do you look back and say, "Hey, I need to change my process," or do you just trust the process and be like, "You know what, this year just it didn't hit"?
So I think you got to learn from your mistakes. You got to look, you know, like I don't have a specific example, but like go back a few years. You know, here's a good example. I kept Sam Laporta. That was a fucking mistake. You know what I mean? Like, you know,
Yeah.
but I thought that in that
No, but that's
offense,
a very reasonable thing to think, though.
Yeah.
Like,
I thought he was going to be the next, you know, Gronkowski, Kelsey tight end. And reality is that when Jameson Williams was healthy, Jameson Williams' speed just changed that offense. And you could see Goff over the last two games not having the same success with the yardage totals he's had. And that's because Williams isn't there to stretch the field. You know what I mean? So, you know, little things like that you don't think about. You got to take the whole team into account. And sometimes you get starstruck on this one guy who's a rookie, 88 catches, 800, almost 900 yards, 10 touchdowns. Yeah. And I'm like, this guy's a beast.
So you talked about, you just talked about some of those numbers. So what are some of your go-to analytics that you go by?
Oh, so I mean, for QBs, I honestly, I don't use any. I just look at their last 3 years. I look at what I've seen them do. I look at their capabilities. I've watched enough games that I honestly, you kind of know what their offense is. And again, there's maybe some changes with coordinators and stuff like that. QBs, I look at their history. I look at what they've done. I don't go into, you know, yards per average, some of those adjusted passer ratings. It's too much, man. So for me, analytics for me is more. It's more wide receiver and running back, and for both those
positions, yeah.
And for both those positions, it is always opportunity first, right? So targets and carries, and you could look at, you know, catchable targets. There's some other stuff you could break down, but for me, it's targets and carries. That's number one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that I've been hearing that catchable targets a lot recently, and it makes a lot of sense because, you know, you have somebody like Deshaun Watson throwing out all these passes and they're just garbage passes, and you're like, okay,
I got Cooper. I know,
right? Yeah, Cooper said he gets 12 targets. And, you know, bet I'm gonna get Cooper. He's getting
like
a lot of opportunity.
Catchable.
Right, exactly. And then you realize that they're all shit targets.
So, and speaking of that, Cooper's a good example of another wide receiver analytic I really like, which is air yards per reception. That shows you not just like their average depth of target, but how far the ball travels in the air, right?
Yeah.
So how far they're actually throwing it. And Cooper is in like the top 20 in air yards per target, which means he's being thrown the ball inaccurately at distance by Deshaun Watson, which shows promise for Josh Allen. I don't think he'll get the same number of targets with Allen, but you know, it shows promise for his ability to make bigger plays, I think, with Allen in the long run. But you know, again, there's a lot of you could look at. You know, another good one for wide receivers is target share, right? And then you could look at yards per target. I love yards per target, right?
Yeah.
If a guy's got a lot of targets and a lot of yards per target, he's a beast, right?
See, target share to me is a good analytic tool, but it's like very deceiving at the same time, because you think, okay, this player is leaving, so he has 24% targets. They're vacant now. So whoever's coming in is gonna get those targets, and all of a sudden they get like 10%, and then they're shit.
You know, I think Keon Coleman's a great example of that. This year,
exactly.
Right? Because people thought Keon was going to get all those targets, me included, and I thought he was going to get. I didn't think he was going to get all of them, but I thought he was going to get a lot. They lost Gabe Davis, they lost Stephon Diggs, but Shakir, Knox, the running backs.
I think that's where the eye test came in, because I thought Shakir was going to have a year like that he's having, because he's easier to get the ball to in the slot. Versus Keon Coleman, he's got to go downfield. He's got to beat somebody off the press. He's not the greatest route runner. Like, so it's just a surplus of information that you have to take in with the analytics. So, like,
And Shakir, and to flip, I was talking about your air yards per reception. Shakir's on the lower end of that scale, but Shakir has higher yards after catch than a lot of
Exactly.
wide receivers. So
Yak.
you can't live that as it's the one and only thing. You have to look at
Mhm.
yards per reception for
Mhm.
air yards, and then add in yak and kind of look at that because
Mhm.
there's a lot of guys that get a lot of yak yards and they just
Yeah.
grade after the play.
Especially, yeah. I was gonna say, especially in the fact of like that's a part of the run game, and now for a lot of teams, they use the short option passes, RPOs, as a run play,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yep.
just handing the guy the ball off. Now you got a guy who's coming with some momentum towards the ball, going. He's great after the catch. So, especially in
One-
these, like I keep seeing these in these like third and longs. It's just these chance plays that they'll use to be like, let's see what he can do, and he'll get a 12-yard gain, first down. Like,
And Wandell Robinson's a great example of that. I think he's average depth of target's like 2 yards. You know what I mean? Like, but he creates after. He may only get 5 yards one play, he may get 7 the next, he may get 10, but he takes his 2 yards and he adds 3, he adds 4.
9 receptions for 40 yards.
Yeah. But I mean, he caught half of those at -2 yards. You know what I mean? On a screen pass. So he does well with what he's got. So and that same, I think the same yards, but after contact to before contact, to me translates to running backs, right? And we were talking about Tyrone Tracy earlier. Yards before contact, to me, it shows one of two things, right? Either you have a really good
offensive
O-line,
Yep.
yeah, or
vision.
you're quick and decisive, right? So yeah, it's one of the two. And then yards after contact, that's going to show me how to make people miss, right? So I look at those numbers, but I look at them per rush. Because to me, a guy that, for example, Tyrone Tracy, he may not have as many yards total, but he doesn't have as many carries. So when you look at how it translates, he averages over 2 yards on each. He's averaging, I think, like 2.4, 2.5 before, and like 2.2, 2.3 after, something like that. You guys could look it up and verify. But to go in there and create after and to be quick and decisive hitting the hole is what makes him, I think he's going to be special. I don't think he may not be able to handle the workload full time, long term, because he's a little small. He was a wide receiver in college, but we'll see. I mean, there's been plenty of great, hugely successful running backs who only handled a third of the carries and a third of the targets, and that's one thing they haven't got him involved as a former wide receiver in the pass game as much as I think they should. So
Can't throw the ball.
yeah, that's the problem. Old
Impressive
DJ, man.
Throw a touchdown and still have 0 yards. I think that was super impressive.
Yeah, bruh.
But yeah, bottom line, I think for me, the number one analytic is opportunity. So targets. And for a running back, I might say, you know what, like Kamara, the dude's got, I think, 46 catches currently. And so he's on pace for like 90 catches. That's, to me, a running back, that's 90 points. That's 900 rushing yards to get the same points translated into a fantasy game. So I look at targets and carries combined for running backs with an emphasis actually on targets. I'd rather have a guy that can catch because you get that point per reception.
Yeah. How do you look into or how do you care about like the next gen stats where they have like the chips in the pads and you see how fast the players are going? Like, does any of that take into account? I know the game speed is different than like free speed, but
I mean, so I'm a big combine guy. I watch the combine. I study these results. I look at these guys. So like, I already know that guy's got 4.4, 4.3 speed. Like, so to me, when he hits 19, 20, 21 miles an hour, I'm not shocked. So like, part of, again, that eye test, that gut feeling is I've been watching these guys film since college. Like I've probably watched just this last few months alone, probably 2 or 3 hours of Ashton Genty highlights. I've watched probably an hour and a half of Tetairoa McMillan highlights. I've watched 2 to 3 hours of Shadur Sanders, 2 to 3 hours of Cam Ward, 2 to 3 hours of Quinn Ewers, right? Quinshon Jenkins. There's a whole bunch.
Don't give him too many names.
I'm not.
Too many names.
I left. I only gave you the big ones. I'm not going to give. I'm not going to give you the rest. There's some really good guys coming out this year. I will say this: the running back class this year is going to be sick. There's a lot of talent. And there's, one obviously elite option when it comes to contact balance, but there's a lot of other guys that are in the right scheme could be possibly better than him, just depending on who they're drafted to. So that matters a lot.
You say you watch a lot of combine. I'm curious to know, like, because combine to me is it's all rehearsed. Like they practice the combine like relentlessly until the actual day, especially the combine and the when they have at their own stadium. I forgot what it's called. So when you watch that and you see a quarterback go out there, the pro day, thank you.
Yeah.
When you watch that, you see like the quarterbacks go out there and throwing all these great passes, like reverse handoffs and then turning around and all of a sudden throwing like 60 yards.
So
like,
to me, the biggest one for any combine, not pro day, is simply the 40s, the 3 cones. Depends on position, right? Like
right, of course.
What you're looking for, and you find a guy that runs a 4.40 and he's running under a 7 on the 3 cone and the shuttles, and he's a running back. I'm like, that guy has elite traits. Chase Brown, great example of a guy that in the combine had elite athletic skill, where he's top 5% in the last 20 years. So it was a guy that I thought had a lot of potential, and I looked to draft him in a couple leagues. I didn't get him in this league, but I did pick him up in this league after somebody dropped him. So but I saw a chance if he got carries, he could be, I don't want to say elite, but above average. Because vision, there's a lot of other things, offensive line that plays a factor. But and we talked about the yards before contact. He's averaging 3 yards before contact to carry. Chase Brown is. So that shows you how good he fits in that offensive line, A, and then B, how decisive he is when he has a cut. Eventually, I think he only averages like 1.6 after contact, which I'd like to see players above 2 in both. So that shows you that they can hit a hole and they can juke and make somebody miss after. So,
so how do you use this information then when you're trying to do pre-draft, versus in season? Like, I know, pre-draft is a lot of analytics heavy, but then in season it's more like it's less analytics, more of like what have you done recently. So you're looking at more of those 3-game stretch, 4-game stretch, average things out. So how do you use your analytics? Or how do you view your analytics in the seasons versus pre-draft?
So pre-draft analytics they're going to give me like a baseline expectation. One of the big things I look for pre-draft is touchdown regression and progression. So like,
it's a big one.
For example, Terry McLaurin, 4 touchdowns last year, 1,000-yard receiver, 72 catches. He's going in to get Jaden Daniels, who I thought was going to be good. I didn't think he was going to be this good this quick, because he's been just, might even not. Lamar's probably got a big shot at the MVP, but he's got a chance if they continue to win like they are. The Commanders finish 14-3, and he's completed 70% of his passes as a rookie. He could be a rookie MVP, which is crazy.
Right now.
Yeah.
I'm buying a jersey,
and I think he'll come back to earth a little bit, but I think that he's too good to fall far. But he's going to face some tougher defenses over the second half than he faced in the first half. So it'll be interesting to see. But I still think he has an outside shot at an MVP as a rookie, and I think outside of him getting hurt and somebody else just going off as a rookie, he's already got the offensive rookie of the year locked. But again, Terry McLaurin was a guy who was like 4 touchdowns, getting a new quarterback, and I think he could. I know he's had people looked at him and go, oh, he's declining, but I'm like, this dude had Sam Howell throwing him the ball. The best quarterback he's ever had was Alex Smith, and I knew Jaden Daniels was better than any of those guys. So Jaden Daniels to me was the best prospect in the draft. That's the guy I look for. So I'm looking at baseline expectation, and I'm going, I see this guy increasing in targets. I see him increasing in carries if he's a running back, right? I see him increasing in touchdowns. So
Mhm.
I look at that baseline that I've got from my research, and I go, what do I think that guy's going to do? Do I think he's going to produce? And again, sometimes I'm wrong, but I get more hits than misses, I think. So that's how I look at a pre-draft.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty good point. I mean, I feel like I can see you now in the room with like spreadsheets and like a dim light and like
I'm checking.
a
Yeah.
cigarette. like the mad, I guess the mad mind. Like I could vision it right now.
Yeah, and I mean, I do like to pick sleepers, because and it's my fault, man. I'll pass up a guy sometimes that it's like, man, you shouldn't pass this dude up. But it's like this dude, I think he could do real good, and I'm gonna take him. But I could have
Mhm.
had a sure 1,000 yards for a guy that could do 700 or 1,200, and I'm like, let me get the 700 to 1,200 guy, and he ends up doing 700 that year. So it could be tough. But you mentioned in season 2. So in
Yeah.
season to me is entirely different. I
Yeah.
don't really look at their old stats. I look at their current stats, how their team is playing,
Mhm.
how their offense flows. And then what I'll do is I'll look at maybe the previous season, but the only thing I'll look at is did their stats increase or decrease for 1, 2, 3 years back in the second half, right? And
Mhm.
Najee Harris is a good example. I want to trade it for Najee. I wanted Najee because Najee Harris is typically a second half running back. He does better in the second half than he does in the first half. And Kenneth Walker, to a lesser extent, also does that. So those were guys I was looking at. I can get these guys. Hopefully they'll pick it up in the second half, and I can get something off that. I also look at their schedules. Right? Are they playing against teams that are good? Or are they playing against teams that are bad? Right?
Yeah.
If you got the third, fourth, and fifth worst run defenses, and that's who they play in week 15, 16, 17. I'm trying to get
want
that.
you.
Right.
You're
Right.
probably
Yeah.
not going to get that perfect lineup, but you
Yeah.
go, okay, this guy's got an average of the 14th best run defense over the last 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Then maybe that's worth a trade, because he's going to be playing against a bunch of lesser run defenses.
Mhm.
And then the last thing I do is I trust my gut, and then I just message Stavo and say, "What do you think?"
and I'm the last deciding factor.
Yeah. He's my last deciding factor. I pretty much got it locked, but I just want to like, am I being dumb?
Right.
So
And
at the back end
it
of
works.
it, do you think, there's all this talk of AI. Do you think there's any
Mhm.
shaping of it in analytics for fantasy?
Um,
Or do you incorporate it already?
I think that I don't use AI. I think that if you use AI, I think you got to be like super specific on what you ask it, then adjust how you ask it based on it. So I think for the most part, that won't be an issue. Now, I feel like we got a lot of smart dudes in this league, so it might be a problem because everyone's looking for that edge and they're going to try to figure it out. And
Mhm.
there's going to be a
Yeah.
YouTube tutorial on how to ask AI for fantasy football picks, and somebody's
Hey,
going to draft an AI team and win the league. But who knows?
I
When I
might
look
try
at
that one day.
AI,
Do an auto draft of AI.
do it in
Hey,
the
do my
Yahoo
auto draft for
Public
me.
League.
I gotta
Yeah,
go. I gotta
do
go
it in the
somewhere.
Yahoo Public League. But no, I think that it can maybe be a good way to maybe get some rankings on something if you're not sure. Personally, so I use a couple sources. I use like Fantasy Pros for my spreadsheets. I'll download spreadsheets from Fantasy Pros because it's got all the stats I want. And then I might make another page for 22, 23, 24, and then I will script
Mhm.
formula to average those out on a page that I make myself.
Yeah.
So I'll write, sum of divided by 3, and I'll just pull
Mm.
from all 3 previous pages. But yeah, and then I use StatMuse a lot, which it's not an AI, but it's like you ask it a question and it'll pull all the data you want. So it's like I'll be like, what is the Tennessee Titans average pass yards per game against them this season? And it'll pull up that number. And I'll say, give me game by game, so I can see who passed against them, how many yards they got, and I can look at the team and the quarterback that played, and I can go, okay, well that makes sense. And then I'll be like, well, how were their rushing yards against? And I go, okay, well they were getting rushed all over. That's why he didn't throw the ball, you know?
Mhm.
So I use that for matchup predictors and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But it's not true AI. Maybe down in the future, it might be easier to find the info I want with AI. So I might switch to that. But right now, I like to look at, when I'm looking at matchups, I like to look at how does it break down with some analytics. And again, that's more of a who are you playing on a week to week basis. And last week we were talking about we were talking about Jared Goff, remember? And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm probably going to bench him for Justin Herbert because I don't like his matchup. I don't like the game script, and that
Right.
was more of a gut feeling because
Yeah.
Jared Goff's been on fire
Been
and
great.
is
Yeah.
playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the league. And I was like, I need all the points to beat Chase, and I still didn't beat him. So I don't think it mattered much.
Yeah, I think incorporating AI into fantasy is going to be eventually pretty good. I think it's still in the early stages. So to me right now, it's
Is it
kind of
really?
like, do I? I mean, yeah. I mean, AI
We've been
itself is
using.
still
I think we've been using AI in sports for a while now. It's just been lesser known.
I would agree.
right. So
Yeah.
okay, so to a lesser extent, but I think like for me to really trust it to like predict a lot of stuff like games, like weekly games or stats and stuff
Well,
is
that's just like trend.
the next
That's
step.
just like trends, and like you could see it just using numbers to do it, similar as what you're doing in a spreadsheet. So like predict, like I was talking about this earlier with like predictive modeling, and you can use the same numbers that we were just talking about to create like a trend. This is like data science. That's all it is. But like,
Yeah.
you got to know what questions to ask. You got to know, like even said, you got to be
Mhm.
very specific.
Parameters
it's
too.
just-
Like
yeah,
you got to set parameters with it. You
Right.
gotta be like,
yeah,
I want to know, who's the best wide receiver. It's not going to give you the right answer. You got to be like,
right.
who is the wide receiver that's going to the top 10 wide receivers with the most targets? And then you
Right.
go, who has the best chance in their situation next year to reproduce those targets, right? You
Mhm.
got to keep asking it questions, and that's how it filters down.
Mhm.
So I think that the line of questioning is going to be the thing that
Prompts.
some people can't
Mhm.
do it properly, so maybe they're not as successful with it. But if you know how
Prompt
to ask the
education.
right questions, yeah, then that's going to be key for AI. So
And that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like it's getting there in that sense is in the earlier stages because once somebody hones that in, then it's gonna be a
Mhm.
great tool. But right now,
There's-
it's kind of like if you don't know what you're doing, then you can really fuck up your team and and
Hey,
you ruin
that's
your chances to win. So like,
there'll
part
be
of pushing it forward.
there'll be tutorials on YouTube eventually, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
right.
You
I
know,
just don't
they'll
think we
show them how to
fully
do
there.
it.
I can't just blindly use AI to help me draft, but I can use that as an additional tool to everything
Of
else right
course.
now.
That's
If you
what
Like I said,
analytics are. Additional
It's
tools.
yeah, exactly.
StatMuse. I use StatMuse a lot. It's not a true AI, but it uses, internet data, pulls what you're asking for. And again, it's not an AI, but it has
Mhm.
qualities of an AI. It's like an early version of an AI. So
Mhm.
you can ask it any question, and then you can't really filter down from there. But if you then go within the question you're asking and adjust the parameters of that question, you can get more data that you're looking for,
Mhm.
deeper data. And I'm not going to tell you guys how to do that. All right. But
All right, well,
StatMuse is good. I like StatMuse a lot. So check it out, mess around with it, and you might find something cool.
we'll end it there. And when I publish this pod, I'll make sure I get ask for some money because you give out so much knowledge that just can't be free.
Yeah, I know, right?
Ebook. Ebook.
Right.
I didn't even get into the YouTube guys that I follow and
Yeah,
all the stats breakdowns. This guy
you
knows.
can't give out too much because
Yeah.
you're still the same guys who listen to this podcast. So you can't give them too much ammo
No.
to dish you.
No,
'Cause
I
they
spend
listening.
I spend way too much time to have only won this league twice. Researching. So hopefully I can win it a third time this year. At least I feel good about that.
Yeah. Well,
I
good luck,
appreciate
bro.
it though.
Thanks
Yep.
for coming on. We'll let you go here. Finish out.
Appreciate it, man.
Enjoy your
Y'all have a
night.
good one.
Take it easy, man. That was a good one right there. I felt like you blessed us with some knowledge.
Definitely. If you're listening in, definitely take advantage of that free drop he
Yeah.
just gave. Free game,
Boy.
man. Free game.
Boy. Let's see who listens and takes notes. You'll be sitting at home rewinding, like, what did you just say? Shit, go
Right.
back. All right, let's finish this out real quick and get to these picks. Last week was tough. Last week was tough. She lost against BK. Shout out to BK, good win. I can't even say anything bad about it. Team just imploded. I can't even.
Tough one, man.
Yeah,
It'd be like that sometimes, man.
Yeah, that's fancy. So we both picked me, which is a mistake. Both picked you. You won that game. I picked Chase over Eamon. You did the vice versa. I was right. Quan beat EJ. Both picked that, and I picked Mario over Ray and got that wrong. And you picked Ray, so we both ended up going 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
So still tied, 30-10.
It's always tied, man.
Yeah, we think alike. I mean, it's harder when like all the teams are like equal.
Yeah.
But every week you're gonna have two games you kind of be like, okay, well, I know
that are gimmies.
Yeah. Right. And then the other three is like, okay, these are all toss ups.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So he got this week. Me and Mario. I got Mario. I got
Mario.
Anybody
for
playing
sure.
against me for the next rest of the season, really, pretty much. I'm cooked. It's all right.
Then you got me versus EJ. I'm gonna take me.
Yeah, I got you as well.
Then we got Chase versus Ray. I'm gonna go with Ray.
Got Ray as well.
Okay.
So it's just 3 for 3.
Yep. Then you got Quan versus BK.
I got Quan. No,
I got Quan.
Yeah, I got Quan.
I got Quan as well.
Okay, this is this tough one then here. Eamon and Clarence.
I'm gonna go with Eamon just because I think Clarence's team is coming back to earth. Like I think he's about to crash.
I got Clarence. He has some decent matchups. I think
I gotta stick to true what I said. I said either his team's gonna go on stay on a high, or they're gonna crash hard.
Yeah, I mean that's not totally incorrect. I see the same thing happening too, but he just keeps winning. Well, I think he lost last week.
Nigga, I just beat him by 100-something points.
Yeah, you did, but he still.
I'm just saying. I think other teams are getting better.
Yeah,
and his team is not. Like people are getting people who are put in different situations, trades, healthier. You get what I mean? Like,
yeah. So,
yeah, man, it's just how it goes at the back end of the season.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So we got a surprise for y'all. Hope y'all stay tuned for the whole show. This is our 25th episode. So shout out to Skylar and myself.
Shout out to us.
So for our 25th episode, we wanted to surprise y'all with a $25 gift card to NFL Shop. So we're gonna do a raffle for this. So you have to actually listen to the show. Go to enter the raffle. You have to go to our YouTube page and go into the comments and type the word 25, the number 25, and then
you could type out the word as well.
Yeah, right. If you feel so inclined, and then we'll let it stay open for the week, and then next week when we do our pod, we're gonna do a raffle with the names of those who actually put the number in the comments to see who wins the $25 gift card, and then I'll just send that to that person electronically after you choose the winner. So go to YouTube comments, put the number 25 to enter the raffle to win the $25 gift card to NFL Pro Shop. So thank y'all for listening, and hopefully y'all heard the whole show so you can get that gift card. Chances are it's gonna be one person. It'll be a real easy raffle. If nobody enters, then we just split it ourselves.
Facts.
Right. Yeah,
I like free things.
Right, exactly. That's all we got for y'all today, though.
All right, y'all. It's good. Peace. Holla.
Take it easy. Yeah.